Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Red G podcast after a few days, after a weird episode last time against whatever the Madrid game was, that I think not everyone is still completely over. After a chaotic weekend, a long weekend, thankfully, hopefully, it continues to be full of such victories as this one was. And after God knows how long it's been, because life has been happening, honestly, I think that's the best way to put it. How are you? Just how are you?
And like you said, it's a busy time for everyone, I think, but it's good to be back. And I think it's the first time we've gotten on since I was actually there. So it's good to be back on and talking about it. And like you said, I mean, after a crazy beginning to last week, it was a nice way to finish yesterday with a pretty straightforward win.
Yeah, I think it's as straightforward as a win at Zagarino. Yet, I don't think we all expected like a comfortable 3-0 victory. The thing that I despise is that I still don't know what Rezos has. No official report has come out. If stuff and rumors are to believe, it's not as serious as I originally thought, at least. But we'll see. Definitely, we'll see. I rather wait for the team to actually come out and talk about it, even though for some reason we have, is it 5 players out injured right now, and nothing has come out about no one, which isn't amazing, but that's Greek clubs for you sometimes, sadly. But speaking about the game, aside that horrible injury, what are your thoughts in general, if you have anything really to analyze? Because I think there is a few points, but they are very, very specific.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, as straightforward of a win as you can get in a tough environment. I mean, Agrinho is one of those places you go. I mean, it's a difficult surface. It's usually difficult weather. One of the better attended clubs in the league. So I mean, as far as everything goes, there were a lot of external things that were going against us. Then, like you said, I mean, we were coming out of the Madrid game with several injuries. Some of those guys ended up playing yesterday, which was positive to see. But I think my main takeaway is that it was a steadying performance. I think you saw very good performances out of certain players. Like I would say Etze and Mancha were two that impressed me. Obviously, I think Kalogoropoulos, when he came in, he was a very positive sign. Obviously, the fact that Retso's been down, that's a big negative that we don't want to see. And like you said, hopefully his injury is not very severe. But overall, I mean, these games are a good way for you to get exposure for some of these guys that don't play a lot. So I thought that was positive. And another positive for me was Tsolakis. I mean, he's been getting a ridiculous amount of criticism lately. And he hasn't had the best season, but I don't think he's been as bad as people have been saying he has. And I think yesterday, there were a few times. Obviously, it's Panathinaikos. They didn't threaten a whole lot, but when he was called upon, I thought that he was very solid. So overall, I mean, not like you said, nothing too major in either direction, positive or negative. But overall, I thought it was a very solid performance that we can be happy with.
I mean, you can't really say that they didn't threaten a whole lot, given that they had one of the clearest chances I think we've seen in the Super League in probably the entirety of the season, which goes back to the point of Jolakis was amazing. That for me, it doesn't matter how many times a goalkeeper is called up to action. I've said that before. If it's one chance, but that chance would be scored on 90% of the goalkeeping population of world football. For me, it's a perfect job. That's why Jolagis, for me, was the out and out MVP, because the +3 that we got, which in the end, with all the chaos that happened in the Super League, which we will just briefly touch on, because God, what was this match with in general, it proves crucial to keep us at the top of the league, because we wouldn't be with what Pauk did. So for me, Zolakis is the main talking point of this game, even though it was just one save. Kalogeropoulos for me is a living, walking example of what we have been talking about for most of the year up to now, that, yeah, the squad is perhaps lacking some basics, as we've said, and as has been sadly proven. But in some specific positions, this squad is loaded. This squad is loaded. Like, you played with a centre-back duo. Yeah, it was forced because of an injury. But you played with a centre-back duo yesterday that you hadn't even played with this season. Kalogeropoulos and Mansa, I'm pretty sure, haven't played together yet, at least in the league. Maybe they did against Asteras.
I think they did.
But
yeah.
even that, it was their second game together, and we just entered December.
And it's two young players as well. I mean, it's not even two veterans who have been doing this for a long time. I mean, to have two young guys come together and be able to gel like that is an even bigger positive than it would be in normal circumstances.
They're both my age, if I'm not completely mistaken. Maybe Mansa is like one up, one down. I don't really know. They're both around 20. They're both around 21, though.
They are both.
And that's 21. The point. Yeah, okay, so I'm spot on. And the perfect thing is that not only do they have chemistry together for whenever that's needed, but they complement each other's games so well. Kalogeropoulos is that old school Greek centre back that will just completely demolish you, and 9 times out of 10 you're not getting past him. He'll be there for the last minute tackles. He'll even run up when needed for set pieces and corners. He'll find the occasional header. And Mansa's biggest positive.
It's not a Red Sea podcast.
Sideways. Yeah, stuff happens. And as I was saying, Mansa may not have that positioning. He may not have that strength. He does win headers because he's almost as tall as I am. But the distribution, which is something that you pointed out as well, the distribution this man has is insane. I mean, which complements Kalogeropoulos perfectly.
He could play center mid, I'm convinced. I mean, he brings that Brazilian like technique and flair to center back, which is, I mean, you know, like you said, he's still very much a rare prospect, and I think he does have to work a lot on his defensive game. But once he is able to bring that together, I mean, he's going to be an incredibly well-rounded player. And I mean, that's another guy. I mean, this is, you know, bringing him in kind of as that project. I mean, this is a guy who could be leaving Olympiacos in 2 or 3 years for 25-30 million if he continues that progression. But, you know, like you said, very encouraging, you know, in the early going, and the fact that he fits in well with everyone around him. I think that's something that people don't really recognize and appreciate as much as they should, because I mean, how many guys, you know, they can only fit in a certain system or with certain players. I mean, he and Kalogeropoulos, I mean, they both showed yesterday they could be plug and play with a roster of a lot of other guys who've been playing a lot, and they look seamless.
Yeah, I mean, you said it as perfectly as possible. And going back to my previous point as well, adding to those two, you have Biancon. And adding to Biancon, if you want to go even deeper, you have absolute monsters in the B team and the under-19, and especially the under-19s. Like, the centre-backs this club has are endless. Same with the goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Which is something which is a completely different convo. Aside from those two, though, sadly, stuff at the fullback position wasn't as positive, in my opinion. Because while Costinha, for me, Costinha was great. For me, Costinha is consistently great. And that's why I put up the argument as well in the Real Madrid show that even in games like this, I don't think experience matters that much, and he should be starting in the Champions League. Rodney again, and I did put that question up to you, I'm pretty sure, while the game was going on, and I will put it up again now. Rodney has not been himself. And I put up that question again on the Madrid show, and I've seen that question being brought up by a lot of Olympiacos fans. Do you think Rodney should just move up permanently and we can bring up someone? Who's the right back for the academy? Forget the name.
You're going to be better with the academy players than I am.
I'll look it up. You say your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Rodinei is I think the biggest step back that we've seen his game take really in the past 6 months, I would say, because I think you even saw some signs of it stretching back to last season. I think he's just losing a lot of his athleticism, which was a big part of his game and a big part of how he plays. And you saw it, last week against Madrid. I mean, every single goal they scored, all 4 of the goals came from his side, and usually it was because Rodinei was 20 yards behind the play because he can't keep up with Vinicius, who's granted it's Vinicius Jr. I mean, I'm not going to shame a guy for that, but it's not just in that game either. That was just the worst example of it. So I think the thing with Rodinei is I don't think he should be our starting right back for any sort of big game. I think for a game like this, I think if Mendilibar would have started Costinha against Real Madrid and started Rodinei against Olympiacos, I mean, I think if Costinha starts against Madrid, we win, personally. I think the rotation just has to be flipped. I think you start Costinha for your, more taxing games, or you're going to be playing faster players and, you're going to be under threat more often. I think you play Rodinei for games in the league or games in the cup where, you're not going to be under as much pressure, and his creativity and sometimes his lack of positioning won't get punished as dearly. But I agree. I think it is time to start integrating someone else, whether it's from the academy or whether it's a transfer. I think we need someone else at right back, and I think Costinha needs to be the starter.
I will keep the counter argument I proposed before, even though more or less I do agree with you. And for Madrid, if Costinha starts, I'm not going to go as far to say that we would win, but definitely one of the major issues that was there wouldn't be there. And that's mostly half of Vini's chances, right? I wouldn't be opposed if Rodinei got moved as a depth piece up top.
Yeah.
For the right wing, right midfield position. Costinha started the big games, and we brought up Kuchogoulas from the B team to play the smaller games and gave him the chances, because we are talking about a player that did prove himself with Olympiacos last year. He can't keep up with Super League standards. He's shown that already. And I get the chemistry build needed, the experience is needed. The B team is solid, even though we just sacked Pito, so we'll see who comes in. But I really wouldn't be opposed to that idea. And it goes back to the argument that we both have made many times, that if there is one thing about Mendy, as much as I love and respect him, and I do still think easily that he's the best coach of our history, solely because of the achievements, but for more stuff in general, the integration of the youth needs to happen faster. It needs to happen faster, and it needs to happen with more players. And Musakiris just won the Golden Boot, and he's played what? He's played a bunch. He started what this season? 4 games, 5 games?
He's only played in 10 Super League games. Let's see. He's only started 5. He started 5.
Yeah.
Played in 10, and then for the Champions League, he has played in 5 and started 2. So he's starting like half of the matches that he plays, which you and I both agree. I think most Olympiacos fans agree. I mean, he should be the first name on the team sheet, like basically every game. You saw against Madrid, I mean, they didn't beat us in the midfield. Christos Mouzakidis was not part of the problem. He held his own against Tchouaméni, against Camavinga, against Valverde. I mean, he can play with elite level talent. There's no reason he shouldn't be starting every game, especially considering the fact that, like Rodine, I think Dani Garcia has taken a bit of a step back this year. Not as severe, but I don't think there's any justification for him starting over Mouzakidis. So, I mean, I fully agree with the idea that we do need to give youth more of a chance. And it's frustrating, too, because last season it seems like he did a much better job at this with Kostoulas, with Mouzakidis, even with sometimes Papacanelos probably playing more than he really deserved to. So I think that is an area he needs to improve, and it's something he's done before with success. So I don't necessarily know why he moved away from it this season, but I agree that's something that I do want to see us lean into more, because the academy is what's going to take us to that next level as a club.
And I brought up the exact same argument as you did, Lasso, that Mouzakidis doesn't only need to start. The starting 11 needs to be built around Mouzakidis and like 2-3 other names. He controlled midfield against Madrid. He controlled the midfield against Madrid to the point where Madrid are probably going to offer like 30-40 million for him in January. To that point, he controlled the midfield against Madrid. There are a lot of players coming up still. The academy work that we have done gets shown by what Mouzakidis has did, by what Kostoulas is doing, by constant production of talent that's not going to stop anytime soon. These players need to play, and they need to keep playing. Now, another completely different, both positive and negative thing that I personally get from the Panetolikos game is Ayoub El Kaabi. He's starting to pick up his form again, like he always does. Late November, early December, he starts scoring braces for fun game winners. He's consistent as ever. For me, he's even better than he was last season. This time, and I mean, when did you see El Kaabi last season play on the wing? Like, be able to control the ball, beat around 2-3 defenders, and actually go on and get assists. Ayoub didn't do that. And the moment he's starting to pick up form, him for the Copa Africa. And we're left with not necessarily two attackers that I don't trust, but we're left injured, and one that's played 4 games this season. Ayoub will come back even better because he scores an average of 20 goals per Copa Africa with Morocco, especially as that Moroccan team keeps getting better itself. But we need to plan around losing Ayoub carefully. And it's the same with Bruno. Because as much as there is the difference in role, and as much as Bruno isn't as important, quote unquote, we do not have another left back. And we have, say Bruno, I think they're leaving after Kairat. I'm pretty sure I heard that.
I believe the tournament, doesn't it start early January?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that I heard that even the training camp starts right after Kairat, or they'll just let Ayoub play against Kairat. And even after.
He's not going to play at Kairat. Morocco's first fixture is December 21st. It's literally the week after we play Kairat. I don't think there's any way he plays in that game.
Last time I looked into it, they said it's 50-50. It's worse if he misses it, of course.
Let me
but
see.
Again, even if he misses...
Okay, hold on. I thought we played Kairat on the 14th. We play them on the 9th. So there's probably a decent chance that he plays in that game.
Yeah, but say he misses it. Let's go with worst case scenario because I didn't really even have that scenario in my mind. Same would go for Bruno, probably, right? Ortega stands alone in the European list. We can bring someone up in the Super League, but Ortega stands alone.
Pirola can play left back. He did last season.
Yeah, and then who moves into center back?
Biancone. He looked excellent against Real Madrid. I'm just saying. I would be happy with Biancone starting in the Champions League.
I love the guy, and you know that. But we need our best of the best, at least for the Champions League games. Say we put Pirola at left back for the Super League games. And we start Ortega as normal. I'm just very afraid injury-wise because we've seen issues this season. A normal amount, but we've seen issues this season. And we need to take care because December is going to be hell fixture-wise. Because I'm pretty sure we have, like, except from the last week, which is Christmas, of course, I'm pretty sure we have a cup game, Europe, and then a cup game again, if I'm not mistaken.
We have 6 matches in 20 days.
Yeah.
No, 6 matches in 17 days. The 3rd through the 20th, we play 6 matches.
And we have those matches without 2 players that are more than crucial, right?
Yeah.
Is my camera frozen again?
I think so. I can hear you just fine though.
Give me a second because I am.
Oh, you're
Let
back.
me fix myself.
No, but I mean, I think what the philosophy has to be with that in mind is I think you just have to. I mean, I think Bruno should start the cup, and I think he should start Rizolfi on the weekend as well to just give Ortega the most rest possible. Because then the following, next week we have Kairat. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to take careful planning. I mean, I think it's good for us to be thinking, forward as well, because I mean, you never want to talk about a time when Ayoub won't be here, but he's not going to be here forever. Whether it's by contract or whether it's, him just deciding he's done, because he's, and getting into his mid-30s now. It's going to be interesting to see how we cope with that, because that's kind of going to be, what we're going to have to do at some point when we do transition him, out of our team. So, it's going to be interesting. And like you said, I think for a lot of the matches in the league and the cup, I mean, our 2 cup matches are against 2 second division sides. I mean, there's no reason you should be playing any starters for those matches. I mean, that's the perfect opportunity to give some of the B team guys a chance because they played these teams before. This is the level they play at. So, I mean, we are going to have to get creative, but despite that, I mean, I'm not as worried about the depth issues. Obviously, we have 2 strikers. I think Pirola is more than capable at left back. And then, having the center backs we have, I mean, we could even see if Mancha can play some left back. His play style wouldn't necessarily make me think that he can't. But that's going to require Mendilibar to be less rigid in his tactics and his formations, which he's not necessarily known to do. So it'll be interesting to see how he copes with it specifically, because that's a lot of our frustration with him is the fact that he doesn't change things a lot, and he's going to have to.
Yeah, maybe that's more of a reason of my worries and not exactly necessarily the depth, because I know that a lot of the solutions that are there will be utilized, and some specific ones will be utilized that perhaps will cause some issues that shouldn't be there in the long term. But going back to Ayoub really quick before we finish up the game talk, I feel like it's a bit different knowing that you're going to lose a player for a few weeks and needing to limited damage before he comes back. And it's different knowing that you lose a player for good because, knock on wood again, say Ayoub doesn't renew in the summer. We'll have 6 months knowing that, or at worst, we'll have the 3 months with the ability to plan around replacing him. But now, with the games that we did talk about having as well, and the injuries that are more or less looming the side, of course we have the quality to replace him, but rotation needs to be way more mixed than it already is. And I talk about Angelakis as well, but of course he has the injury that's been keeping him out, so you are stuck with those two, unless you bring more of an academy kid. Once again, we know that maybe not the case. So we'll see. We'll honestly see. And again, I'm not really talking about Nigeria, and I'm more talking about Morocco, not because I think that Bruno isn't important to have in the team, but because Nigeria are a complete mess right now, and Morocco may even go all the way and win the whole damn tournament. Now, another point that I wanted to bring up really quickly is the point of the wingers, and specifically Gabriel Strefeccia. We'll get to the subs after, and we'll get to Yazici specifically after. I feel like that against Madrid, and now we saw a completely different Strefeccia again. Against Madrid, we saw a Strefeccia that's willing to prove why he even cost the 8 million that he did. We saw a Strefeccia that was active, that was effective, that was a crucial part of the play. He got an assist, and today you felt like he couldn't dribble past 3 Panathinaikos players successfully back to back. Why? Why?
Yeah, I mean, I think for him, the sense that I get, and again, this is all just, theory. The sense I get with him is he needs, we need to find ways to motivate him. I think the biggest difference you see in Strefeccia, I mean, he's even looked positive in other Champions League appearances when he's played. I think he gets up for those games, and I don't think he gets up as much for Panathinaikos. And I think part of that as well is the fact that he hasn't been as integrated. So, I think not having that consistency can play into this as well. But he seems like a guy where it's just like, he plays to the level of his opponent. So I think that just comes down to needing to do a better job of integrating him and making him more at home in the rotation, because I think, as with several other players that you just mentioned as well, I mean, there's certain guys in the squad I don't think that Mendilibar has done a good enough of a job giving chances to, so that they can build that familiarity. But I think for him as well, I do think it comes down to who he's playing, what's the occasion. He seems to me more like a big game kind of guy, which is why he can play well against Madrid, and then can't beat Haris Mavrias or whoever the hell Panathinaikos have marking him. There's obviously a player there. We saw it. I just think there's more nuance to his situation than just being inconsistent.
Yeah, but again, I don't think that is solely on the team, because then you see players that haven't even been really considered by Mendilibar. Yazici, for example, that's been one of the most effective players of Olympiacos, having 2 goals and 4 assists in less than 400 minutes of game time. So I wouldn't fully put it on the team as much as I would want, perhaps, Mendy, if it was the only thing I could ask for him, is to manage rotation and new players a bit better, for example, like the Scipionis and stuff. But I will put some blame on Strefezza, and I will stand on the ground of the point that I had made a few weeks ago, that if he keeps putting in the work, if he keeps playing at least to his level, if he keeps trying shots, trying crosses, everything will come when it's needed. But he has a big risk of turning into a Velde type of player. And that would be a shame, not for the team, because the team can move on from players like that, mostly for him. That he does have, but we're seeing it in pieces for some reason. And then again, you go to players like Yazici, which Mendy, not as Yazici himself, but as a playing style of Yazici, he doesn't even like. And Yazici gets 10-minute cameos, 8-minute cameos, and he wins us games consistently as well. So there has to be a mindset difference as well, and that's both, on the team up until a point, but that's on the player as well, in my opinion, at least.
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have those expectations, regardless of how much he costs. I mean, he's a professional, right? You have to be able to pick yourself up, and you have to be able to take the opportunities when they do come. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, I think part of it too is you see that a lot. I'd say with like Portuguese, Brazilian players, like I think part of it as well is like if they don't feel like we've seen this in the past, if they don't feel the love from the coach, or they feel like they're they're far from home, I feel like they get homesick easier. Like I feel like they're a lot more volatile usually, and I mean we've seen that in the past. I mean look at guys like, what was his name? We had that Portuguese kid who played left back. He came in, he was supposed to be like game changer for us. I think it was like 2020. Complete flop.
Vinagre.
Vinagre. I mean, you look at some of the like Seba. I mean, a lot of these guys, like they're very hit or miss. Like sometimes they'll be great for us, sometimes they're just completely useless. Obviously Strefezza has not been either. I think he's been just very much kind of in that gray area where you see the flashes of a player, but at the same time, I think it might be I think there's a cultural thing there as well that I've just noticed as a pattern. So I don't know. I mean, it obviously does fall back on the player, but at the same time, I don't put it on the team as much as I necessarily put it on Mendilibar. I think that's where his skills as a man manager need to kind of come through, because the manager has to get the most out of his players. I mean that is what it comes down to. It goes both ways. It's not just on the manager. It's just not just on the player. And I just think there's several guys in the squad he hasn't done that good of a job with. And obviously the most glaring one is going to be your big signing. I mean, why did you want to bring him in for $8 million if you don't want to give him regular game time to prove himself or in that spot? So I think there's a lot of complexity there, but at the end of the day, I don't think he's in Velde territory, because you can tell that he's very good at football. You could tell pretty early on from Velde outside of preseason friendlies that he was not very good at football, and he continues to not be very good at football in MLS. So, I don't have the same worries with him. I just think there needs to be more that goes into integrating him.
Velde territory, of course. I didn't mean the quality in the slightest. That's clear. That's been clear. That was always clear. But I meant Velde territory from expectations to reality. There doesn't need to be a gap with Strefezza, because as you just said, Strefezza is an incredible player and he's shown that every chance that he's gotten. But there are just these games that, again, there is the spotlight of the fee, as I mentioned as well, but that spotlight is there solely because we know that he is truly worth that fee. It's not a BL, it's not stuff like that. We're talking about a player that has proven himself in one of Italy's up-and-comers. We're talking about a player that's proven himself in a much better league than here. So we know he can do wonders here. And I've said it, and I won't back down on it, that if we see the best of Strefezza for Super League games, he is an irreplaceable starter. Perhaps not for Europe of course, but for Super League games, he's an irreplaceable starter because he's a true out-and-out winger when he's at his best. But that sadly isn't shown as much as it needs to be. On my end, at least, we talked about Mouzakitis as well, of course, at the start, talked about the win that he just pulled, the trophy that just got handed to him. Honestly, that's it. It's, as I said, it's those specific points that the game created. We'll see the rotation in the cup as well. Players are going to be tested, players are going to be missing. We'll see who gets back healthy, and we'll see, honestly, what happens in the chaotic month that is December. Any final words for?
No, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. You know, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how this month plays out. This is a gauntlet right before another gauntlet because we have a very tough January as well between Europe and the league. So, you know, these next two games domestically, you know, hopefully we can see some rotation and continue to win. And then, you know, next Tuesday we have a final. So hopefully we can be fully prepared for that.
Thank God that I have the backup setup and I heard you. I don't know why my internet decided to give up on the first show having you back, but thank God it did today and not on a solo show in general. But yeah, honestly, I think you closed it off as well as possible with how unpredictable stuff is coming up. And we'll see soon. Thank you for being back, even though you were running your ass off with life in general. Hopefully, as you said, scheduling can come back to aligning. Next week, I'll say it from now, I've said it before. Next week, I will probably be missing for a few days. I'll know on the 9th is a Monday, right?
9th is Tuesday because today is the 1st.
Yeah, the 9th is a Tuesday. I'll know the details on Tuesday, but I will be missing for a day or two minimum, probably, because as I have updated before, I am gonna get rid of this finally, go in for eye surgery. So everything is gonna be done by this man right here, the trusted second hands of this brand for a bit, but nothing will change, and I'll be back as fast as I always am. It's crazy that the two biggest surgeries I've had in my life have both been while we have been running this, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Thank you, man, for being back, and thank you all for as always watching another chaotic episode. See you all after the cup game.
Thank you.